Howdy and welcome to episode 23 of the 240SX2JZ swap. In this episode, we're going to be overhauling the cooling system on the 2JZ 240SX with the chase-based tucked radiator kit. So I'm going to be going through how to do that. We're going to be doing some other cooling mods to it as well. So let's get right into it. First step's going to be draining the coolant system. I've got my nice clean Ace bucket right here so that I can take all of our coolant, put it in the bucket, and then reuse it because it is really not that old. So we're going to be reusing the coolant, and the drain is right over here on this Mishimoto. So I'm going to get going with that. All right, and while that's draining, I'm going to start loosening stuff so that I can take the radiator out. All right, now it's time to remove the alternator. And I know what you're asking, why are we removing the alternator for a Chase Bay's radiator upgrade? But it's because the fans that are coming with the kit are so heavy duty that our alternator that's on the engine right now won't be able to keep up. It outputs 105 amps, and it's right down here. Luckily, it's gonna be easy to get to. And essentially what we did was we upgraded to a 170 amp Mechman alternator, and we're going to remove this, and then we're going to actually use a suspicious garage alternator relocation kit, which is going to make the alternator sit over here on the cooler side of the engine and take the place of the AC compressor. So we're going to have to remove the alternator and the AC compressor. So I'm going to get to removing the belt, taking all those things out, and then we can keep making progress. I almost forgot, we got to remove the intercooler too so we can get access to our area here that we're going to need to work in for the radiator. So I'm going to get to taking this puppy off. All right. AC compressor's up next. Uh-oh. Yes. All right, now it's time to install the alternator. This is the suspicious garage relocation bracket, and the only modification we're going to have to do is, if you can kind of see down here, you can see there's this little thing right there on the oil pump. It's this little kind of standoff that we actually are going to need to grind down because it gets in the way of our bracket. It doesn't allow it to sit flush where it needs to go. Some OEM oil pumps do not have this little standoff, but if you have a relatively new one, you're going to have to grind this down. So I'm just going to take the angle grinder to it, chop it off, and then this should all bolt up and we can install the alternator. All right, so here's the new alternator. It's a 170 amp Mechman alternator. It's meant for high RPMs. The pulley is just a little bit bigger than what you get standard. We will be revving this car about 8,500 RPM. So we're gonna need a little bit bigger of a pulley. So they were happy to do that for me. So hopefully this should just bolt right up to our suspicious garage bracket. So I am going to go do that now. And then after it's installed, what we need to do is make a cable from pretty thick gauge wire. I have 2 gauge wire, 2.0 gauge wire, I think. So we're gonna go from this positive terminal to the starter, and we're just gonna, luckily they're on the same side, so it's just a direct path back to the starter. And then our wiring harness, we're gonna probably have to extend that or change that up a little bit so that we can get the plug where it needs to go. And then the last thing we need to do to install this is have this grounded directly to the chassis. So I'm going to have to make another wire that taps right into the frame rail, I believe. So a lot that goes into this, but I think it'll be worth it. So let's get this puppy installed. All right, guys, so now we're going to relocate the headlights because they cannot stay in the stock location if you're doing the chase-based tucked radiators. So I have here, not the Auto Collect Storm relocation kit, it's called the English Tune relocation kit, and I'll have a link for that in the description. But it comes with these two brackets, which is what the headlight motors bolt onto. I've got my headlight motors over here. Both of those are stock. Let's see. And I removed the stock arms that came with those, with the eyelets. So those are like that. The kit comes with two 3D printed, it looks like, new eyelets that you're going to use. Comes with hardware, which I have back here. And then the arms themselves are right here. And they are, if I am not mistaken, stainless steel. So if you don't want to paint them, you don't have to. All right, so here we are on the driver's side with one of the brackets. It has a little arrow pointing which side is up, and the way that it is bolted up here is there's this little kind of outcropping that faces the front of the car. So it'll sit like so on there. There are two holes on the driver's side, so this one and this one, that line up with holes over here. If you can see them, there's one up top and one right there. So those holes line up with these, and then you just take the supplied hardware and boop, go right through. You don't even need to do any drilling, and you are good to rock and roll. All right, so here we are over at the other side with our second bracket, and as you can see, like I said earlier, only this hole right here will line up. So get it in position so that lines up right there. And this is the hole that you will need to drill out right up here, that slotted hole. So I'm going to get a bolt and a nut through this bottom hole just to kind of hold this in place. And like I said, you're going to want to make sure the bottom of the bracket is lined up with, parallel with the bottom of the frame rail so everything lines up. And I'm getting a little concerned because this is getting kind of close to my intercooler piping here, and I'm really hoping this clears, so we'll see what happens. All right, now we need to drill out these two threaded holes on the headlight motor here. So this one and this one are threaded, and I've got my 1/4 inch drill bit here, and we're just going to drill those out. Beautiful. All right, so that's one, and I will do the other. The headlight motors bolt up as shown, so these two mounting points go on the bottom, and the headlight motor arm that spins is on the outside. So it'll be like this, just like that. All right, so since that last clip, I've been messing with these headlight relocation things for the past 2-3 hours, and it's given me a ton of problems. So essentially, main problem is that here is our relocation arm, and this goes from the bottom here, which is where the headlight motor attaches, and here's where the headlight actually attaches up here. And if you can imagine, you've got a force pressing up down here and a force pushing down up here, which creates a moment or a torque on this arm, which causes it to flex. So what's happening is that when the headlight is up or down, you can wiggle it super easy because of all the flex that is in this arm, which is no bueno, because if you can imagine, you don't want your headlights bouncing around when you're going down the road and you're at night and you got the headlights on. It's not going to be a good thing. So what I'm going to do is I have this, and the bends here, I might also add that the bends that come with this arm, they're not too precise. So each of the arms were each bend was like a different radius and a different angle. So I had to kind of fit them and bend them to where they needed to be, and then take them off and make sure the headlights cycled okay. So I think I have them pretty much sized and bent how they need to be. And I'm going to take it to a local fab shop. And you can see I have it all marked up here. And I'm going to have them brace the corners with some bar stock here. So that should get rid of the flexing because a lot of it happens in the corners. And then on this long flat section right here, I'm gonna have them reinforce these sides with some, probably, you know, they could use this, they could use a rod, whatever, and just weld it up to this to kind of strengthen this flat part because that is also prone to flexing. So that's the issue. Obviously, it couldn't be smooth sailing because nothing on this car is smooth sailing. But so that is where we are at with the headlight motor relocation. So I need to get these all fixed up. And then in the next clip, you guys should see the new and improved relocation arms. And then we'll hook it all up and it should be good to go. One other thing, the eyelets that came, the 3D printed eyelets that came with the kit, they are terrible. They're the worst thing in the world. They're super loose, and because the arm is so long, any little, you know, looseness in one of the ball joints equivalates to a large amount of shaking and movement on the, you know, on the headlight. So you can't use these. You have to use the stock ones, which I have luckily kept, so they're right here. But you can only use the white pieces because those are threaded for you know, an M6 thread. The black ones are not, so I'm either gonna have to pick up 2 more of these or I'm gonna have to like tap these, which I think I'm gonna try to do. But that's where we're at. Love this stuff, love it. Absolutely love it. All right, so another item on the Chase Bays tucked radiator kind of conversion here is this modified water neck. So if you remember, the OEM one kind of wraps around here and it terminates about right here, and then I used a crossover pipe to get to the coolant input that was over here on the old SR type radiator. But on the Mishimoto, or I'm sorry, not on the Mishimoto, the Chase Bays kit, the inlet is right here. So we needed something that just came straight across just like this, and the Chase Bays actually they manufacture this water neck here that just goes just like this, and it'll go right to where we need to go instead of having to modify the OEM one. So I have a new gasket here that just goes right up like that, and I'm gonna go ahead and install this bad boy. So this requires a special water bypass pipe. So it's this little pipe that sticks up and it seats in this hole right here, and it's got an O-ring on it. And the one that comes with this water pump is too short, so it wasn't seating. If you sat this water neck down on that pipe all the way, so the O-ring was seated where it needed to be, this sat far too low and it wouldn't have been able to bolt up to the block. So Chase Bays sells a extended bypass pipe. They told me that I wouldn't need that if I had the 2JZ water pump, but I guess I do need it for some reason. So I am gonna go and purchase that. So I guess we're gonna hold off with installing this. And in the meantime, let's install the radiator. All right, it's time to start cutting up our car for that tucked radiator. So I've got 2 tools that I think are hopefully all I'm gonna need. So I've got this mini angle grinder from Harbor Freight, and I've also got this buzz saw also from Harbor Freight, and I'm just doing right here, if you can kind of see, I've marked a little bit of it, but you're just taking these corners out of the core support. So because the radiator is going to need to, the corner is going to need to sit there, so you're kind of just cutting the corners out. So I'm expecting this to be hard and take a long time, so I'm just going to get to it. That's a little chunk right there. All right, fellas, here is our first corner cut out. You can see I didn't do this whole front section because the radiator doesn't come up that far, so you don't really need to do that frontmost part all the way out, but the back is totally notched out. you can see there's kind of this lip that goes across the bottom of the core support here. You're going to need to hammer that flat when you go to install the radiator, but you can also see that the side here, I tried to make it as flush as possible with the chassis rail. So I cut away, you know, so that was nice and flush. We still have to do this side over here. I used a bigger angle grinder, whatever like the standard size is. I kind of forget what that size. Ooh, where is it? Right there. Regular size angle grinder, mini angle grinder, and then the buzzsaw. They were all a huge help. So yeah, I'm gonna get going on this side, and then we'll hammer that lip out, and we'll see how the radiator sits in here. All right, so 3 hours of angle grinding and buzz sawing later, we got everything cut out that needs to be cut out, but we have a problem, and I will show you guys what is up. So first let me get a light for you here. Okay, so you can see here is our one side, here is our other side, and that lip, that is our problem. So I decided, you know what, why don't I just cut the lip off? So that's what you see right here. So you can see here, I cut into the weld for this bottom part of the core support, which is a problem. I'll just show you everything I had to cut out. So up here, there's these kind of arms that stick out, and there's a section down right here, right where my finger is. There's like a little lip kind of that you just angle grind off. It was nothing major. And then there's these lips back here. I don't know if you can see it, but you can see there's like an overhang right there. So this part would stick out, and this is where the bracket goes. This is where you're actually mounting the radiator to the car. So you can see I cut in, down, and it's flush with this. So on the other side, there's just a, just metal, and you drill through it, and that's what you mount the radiator to. There's one on each side, so you can kind of see another part of it is up there. So the biggest thing that gave me problems was this lip down here. As you can see, I wasn't sure if I wanted to cut it or hammer it flat, and I kind of did a little of both, so it looks terrible, but obviously you won't see that when the radiator's in. So I'm a little worried about the weld. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna try to find a buddy or a friend that has a MIG welder, and I'm gonna kind of stitch that back together, because I really am not comfortable with leaving it like that. And then after that, it's all patched up and we kind of reinforce that. I'm gonna put a coat of paint so it doesn't rust, because there's all this exposed metal. And then we can finally go ahead and mount the radiator. So that's gonna take some time, unfortunately, but if you want the job done right, you're gonna have to take the time to make sure it's done right. So yeah, unfortunate, but gonna find that welder, get this back to the way it was before I hacked it all up, and then I'm not gonna show you guys yet, but I test fitted the radiator and it fits. Oh, it's cherry, it's fantastic, it looks so good. So next shot from here will be me welding this back together, or someone welding this back together, and then we'll pop the radiator in after a fresh coat of paint. All right, see you in a bit. All right, so the welding just got done on the core support. Thank you very much, Eric, for your help with that. So you can see down here where there used to be a big gap, got that all kind of stitched up. You can see stitched up kind of the rest here along the bottom of the core support. And it's also all messed up because at this point, I'm gonna paint it, just paint it black so we prevent all that exposed metal from rusting. And then, heck yeah, we should be good to go to install that radiator. So I'm gonna get to painting this. Good morning, guys. It's the next day. We're gonna start reassembling everything. So I've got all of our newly painted parts here. So we're gonna install the intercooler and all of our braces, and then we're gonna put the radiator in. So let's go. So I'm gonna install our fittings. This is the raised water fill pipe thing from Chase Bays, and it comes with two fittings. One of them I chose to be a tube slip-on fitting, and the other is an AN fitting because, or it's an AN to AN orb, because this part threads into the radiator and the other part threads into this. So I'm going to first lube up our O-rings. I'm going to thread the short orb end into this side of the raised water neck, because this side, if you can imagine, if you screw it in like this, nothing will interfere. But if you try to screw it in or thread it in like this, your overflow tube nipple is going to hit the radiator when you try to screw that on. So this is going on this side. We've got that all tightened down, and so I'm actually going to thread the other end on here. Do a little one of these guys. So after a ton of wrestling with it, finally got it on. I really had to manhandle it to get it to tighten down and be oriented how it needs to be oriented, but as you can see, it is on, as well as our slip-on tube fitting right there. So I'm just going to go ahead and attach our lower radiator hose fitting, and we should be done. And I've made these little rubber kind of tabs that are gonna mount between the mounting point on the radiator and the body of the car, just to kind of protect it from a little vibration and stuff. So I've got these, and then I've got little fender washers right here, little fender things, whatever you want to call them, and countersunk hex screws, and they just fit right through there. They sit nice and flush, and I got long enough screws so that they mount all the way through the radiator and through the other side of the core support here. So I'm gonna try and install these. So the radiator is finally in, and to tighten down the bolts that I had going through, I don't know if you can see them, they're down there. So they kind of come out behind the headlight bracket, the thing that holds the actual headlight on. So I had to take the headlight bracket off and kind of move it out of the way so I could work back there to tighten them down. But that wasn't a huge problem. As you can see, this is what it looks like, fully tucked. So it kind of comes out. You don't have to grind away any of this top support here. So, and I even have the wiring harness under this upper support. So it clears all of that. So it sits real nice. I'm actually very happy with that. And at the bottom, hard to see, but you can see it comes almost as far forward as the bottom core support goes, but not quite. So that is how it sits down there. And here's what it looks like from the side profile. So totally tucked. The top part is totally under this upper support, and the bottom is kind of poking out a little bit because the radiator slants forward because of the fact that we have those 3 vertical beams. If those were not there, those braces weren't there, you could have this sitting totally vertical. But because the bottom can't slide super far forward, it's sitting kind of cocked forward, but that should be fine. But anyway, I already test fitted the fan. Like, I didn't test fit the fans, but I kind of just pressed them up against the radiator. There is an ample amount of room in there between the engine and the radiator, as you'll see soon. But like I said before, here is our upper filler neck, the Chase Bays one right here. And I already tried closing the hood, and you can see that I've marked out, and there's still some blue Loctite up there, but I've already marked out with a Sharpie where I need to cut the bottom support for the hood. I'm really hoping that after this gets cut out, it will shut the hood, because if not, we're going to have to figure out some solution for the upper neck here. But yeah, I'm gonna get grinding away up here, and we'll see if the hood closes. go. The Mishimoto 12-inch Raceline fans are installed. Here's the clearance we get to the engine, so I can stick my whole hand. I mean, I have a thin hand, but I can pretty much stick that down in there. As you can see, if you get a side profile, I don't know if you can see it on camera. Like I said, they are cocked forward, a little bit tilted forward because the radiator is tilted forward. But I'll tell you right now, because you can't install the fans prior to installing the radiator, so you can't mount the fans on the radiator before you install it. You have to do the fans after the radiator's in. That took like 45 minutes because it was really hard to get the nuts and the bolts and the mounting hardware for those fans in there. But as you can see, looks real nice. They're nice and thick with about 5 Cs. So I'm hoping that we really get a nice amount of cooling on those. So at this point, I'm going to call this tucked radiator install pretty much wrapped up because it's installed, the fans are on. All I have to do is really wire up the fans, and then this whole thing is good to go. But everything else is, you know, is on here. So that's pretty much what it takes to install this bad boy. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments below. Happy to get back to you. And heck yeah, I'll catch you all right in the next one. Peace.